Sage has a couple video games he's going to do. The first being System Shock, System Shock Remake. Sage, tell us about this game here.
Yeah. This was a really exciting one for me. I never got to play the original. Came out in 1994, the original one, with a sequel that I think is the more famous of the two in 98 or 99. But this was kind of in the same era of first-person games as like Half-Life. And it really is, it's kind of one of the classic innovative first-person games. So, and not having a chance to play it myself, I was really excited about this remake. They actually came out on the PC last year. Those of us stuck on console had to wait a little bit extra time for it. But this also famously is kind of the precursor to the BioShock games. Which have you played those yourself? The
Yes.
first one of them? Okay. So there's a lot of, just going into this game almost immediately, there's a lot of elements of it that are going to be very recognizable if you've played BioShock. Certain ways that it tells its story, lots of audio logs and notes, very, very similar to the way you pick up and play those in the first BioShock game. They don't have a power system quite the same way, but a whole range of guns. There's a lot of puzzles in this. I'd say there's way more puzzles than there are in something like BioShock. Is another interesting thing about the puzzles is there's like a difficulty setting for combat, a difficulty setting for the puzzles, a difficulty setting for the security defenses. So you can kind of mess around with these a little bit and mix and match what you're doing. And then I put it on easy for a lot of this because I thought this game was a lot harder than I was expecting it to be. Now, there's a potential positive or negative depending on who you are with that. I think the difficulty for me in some of this came from the fact that this game is so true to the original version. It keeps so close to that original game design that certain elements, like it's not always giving you the clearest directions on where to go. You really got to pay attention to every single one of the audio logs and notes that you pick up and read, because like all of the instructions are going to be in there, and if there's not necessarily a marker on the map telling you this is where you need to be. So that could be a positive or a negative. I think a lot of people that were big fans of the original are going to appreciate just how close it is, right? Feel like it doesn't dumb itself down for people that maybe didn't play it back in the day. But if you're maybe not used to some of those older games, I think it could also give you a little trouble. It didn't prevent me from playing the game and completing it for sure. But there was a couple times where it was like, okay, hold on, I missed something, and I'd have to go back through all the logs and just be like, okay, where am I? Where kind of reorient myself a little. You learn quickly to really start trying to pay attention to all that stuff. The combat here, I think, feels really solid. You're kind of you can die easily. Like you're very squishy. Your health goes pretty fast, but I think there's a cadence, there's a rhythm to it. It feels similar to the way BioShock feels to play, just maybe a little rougher around the edges. You also for each part of this game, it's talk about the level design. It is this huge space station. You're kind of you don't have like a name to your character really. You're just a hacker. You're taken by this corporation that you're hacking into. They kidnap you and they basically employ you for a job against your will and take you to this space station off it's close right off of Saturn, and it is turning off the safety locks on this AI system called Shodan. This is kind of the original iconic like AI villain in a video game. GLaDOS from the Portal series was somewhat inspired by that. Just the sarcastic, goofy version versus kind of more of an actually malevolent, scary AI system in this one. And that was actually a cool thing too. See her name here. I have written down Terry Brosius. She was the voice of the AI in the original games, and she returned for the remake, which was really cool because they did re-record all the audio and stuff. but yeah, you basically get forced to remove all the safety locks, and then you wake up some kind of uncertain amount of time later, and everybody on this space station is dead. Like everybody's been mutated with some sort of chemical or like added like cybernetic parts to them. Like everybody's like a monster. It's a little reminiscent of say Dead Space, which that's another game that got some of its inspiration from System Shock. But I believe the original Dead Space actually started its development as System Shock 3. And then when Resident Evil 4 came out, the team was like, hold on, like, what if we take a little System Shock and a little Resident Evil 4? And that's how you got Dead Space. What led to that. But it's this very large open map, all these different levels and sectors. You have to accomplish all these tasks. It's a lot of kind of running around and fixing things, kind of like Dead Space, getting systems oriented the way that you need them, jettisoning certain parts of the ship. Um, and visually, it's a really interesting upgrade here because it looks like a new game, right? It's got these modern graphics, but there's a certain blockiness to the environment that kind of preserves the aesthetic of the original in an interesting way. So it's kind of a best of both worlds as far as visual design goes. It's always very clear where you're going as well, because of that, in terms of just the environments and the lighting. Whereas like sometimes, looking at some of the graphics of the original game, it can be it's so pixelated. It's an old game, right? 1994 at this point. That's like around the same time as like Doom 2 and some of the old Wolfenstein and Shadow Warrior games. But it was not, you go back and play those now. Sometimes I find myself getting a little lost in them. But here the environment's just very crisp, it's very clear. But it's got this great kind of, I guess almost, yeah, that kind of early 90s like neon cyberpunk art style that's going on. Yeah, this was for me. This was a really fun one to return to, or not to return to, but to an old classic to get to see for the first time. Um, I was really happy with it. I would say if you're a fan of BioShock, it's a really cool game to go check out, kind of see where some of the roots of that were established and how that was kind of carried forward into the other games. I hope they do the same thing with the second one. Give this the same kind of facelift. But yeah, what a difference in graphics there, huh?
Yeah,
But
1994.
yeah, that it needed the upgrade. It was a game that I think definitely deserved the sort of upgrade that it has here. I think this turned out really well. This is done by Night Dive Studios. Their next game they're working on is a remaster of the Thing video game from like 2003 on like
Mm,
the PS2, Xbox, which I'm also very excited for that. That was a very cool game from back in the day that I kind of got to see a bit of, but I never really had a chance to play all the way through. So that'd be another fun one for them. But yeah, I really liked this a lot. Certain elements of the game design that felt maybe a little archaic if you're just not used to them, like not necessarily having map markers or kind of a more clear indication of what area you're supposed to be in. Really having to pay attention to those small details, know kind of what you're supposed to do sometimes. And then yeah, there's a difficulty in the combat, I think, where I think you can get down so fast, in a way that I think I am used to some of the more modern shooters just having a little bit more leeway in terms of getting hit by an enemy and not going down so fast. But so outside of a few difficulty spikes that I could see being trouble, I think this game is a lot of fun. I think it's a very cool, nice preservation of a classic. I'd give this like a strong high tune in, I would say. Only reason I wouldn't go higher is just some of those elements of game design that are a little old school. And then I think the storytelling is good, but I think you can see how much room there is for improvement by playing BioShock and seeing where they would kind of take some of these ideas later.
mm, okay. Any glitches at all? Anything like that?
No, performance-wise, the game ran pretty perfectly for me. Really didn't have much in the way of issues with it.
Okay.
there was once or twice where I got stuck and I thought there was a glitch, and then I reloaded it, and then it was like, okay, did it happen again? And then I realized I was just being dumb and figured out what I was supposed to do.
And you played this on console here. You played
Yes,
this
on the
on
PlayStation 5.
PlayStation 5 performance wise. I don't know how the performance is on PC. I know that may sometimes
Yeah.
different experience, but you played on console. You said it was really great experience playing on console. Um,
Yeah, and the PC version has been out for a whole year, whereas the console version only just released recently. So I would hope that the PC version, even if it launched in a rough state last year, I would hope that by now it would be working nice and smooth.
what was the price on the console version?
Only 39.99.
Okay, that's the same price on Steam. You can get it on PC there for the same price there.
Red
And
Giant is a smaller studio, they're not like this big AAA thing. So it makes sense they tend to put their titles at a bit of a lower price point.
yeah. System Shock says here generally received generally favorable reviews. Pretty much Metacritic, it's 78 out of 100 on PC, 80 out of 100 on Xbox, and then 77 out of 100 on PS5 there. So yeah. It says Polygon praised the visuals as looking in the wave games from 1994 appear in my memory, and that
Mhm.
playing this game in this form helps me bring into the conversation with the entirety of the immersion sim genre. Okay, yeah. So yeah, a lot of people seem to be digging it pretty much there. So you said strong high tune in there for System
Yeah.
Shock. All right. Well, people can get it out right now. It's on consoles. It's on PC. $40. That's pretty seems like a pretty good deal. How long is the game?
So it's funny. I checked a playthrough just to see how long. I guess it was probably someone that had already played the game and knew where everything was. But that was like a roughly a 12-hour thing. It took me like 20 hours to get through the whole thing. There were a couple times. I mean, I won't lie. There's a few times where I got lost or stuck on a certain fight, and I had to respawn a couple of times
Oh,
to get through. So it was, it wasn't it wasn't the most difficult game I've ever played, but it also was not like a total breeze either. There was some challenge to it.
it says when focusing on the main objective, System Shock is about 16 hours in length.
Oh
If
damn.
you are a gamer that strives to see all aspects of the game, you are likely to spend around 31 hours to obtain 100% completion. So,
Okay. Yeah, roughly 20 for me, so kind of in the middle between
okay.
those.
Yeah. So, a high tune in for System Shock from Sage.